And a good afternoon, Trojans fans. I'm Will Camardella, joined alongside Reagan Griffin. We are less than a week away from the NFL draft, and today we're going to break down some of the top Trojans prospects and project where they may land in the NFL this week. We're going to start on the offensive line, and we're going to start with the top projected prospect for the Trojans, Eliza vera-tucker. He was Mr. Dependable for the Trojans last year, played left tackle spectacularly after moving from guard, really was not very noticeable, didn't take penalties, didn't give up sacks, everything you could ask for Keaton Slovis. And he is the only projected first-round pick for USC. And I have him landing with the New York Football Giants at number 11. And I'll give you three reasons why. You have a general manager in Dave Gettleman who talks all the time about how important it is to have hog mollies up front. You have a head coach in Joe Judge who talks all the time about how much he loves versatility on the offensive line. This is a guy who has played left tackle and left guard. And of course, you have a third-year quarterback in Daniel Jones who you need answers on this season to decide if he's the quarterback of the future. If you can get a guy like vera-tucker in here and keep Jones upright, it'll leave absolutely no excuses for your third-year quarterback in terms of deciding whether or not he's your long-term answer. I think the Giants make a ton of sense. So we'll transition away from Eliza vera-tucker and move on to the skill positions. Amon-Ra St. Brown was the Trojans' top pass catcher last year. Reagan, where do you think he ends up?
Man, I'll tell you what, before we even get into amon-ra, you're stingy for taking AVT away from everybody. I know you're a Giants fan. That makes a whole lot of sense for y'all, man. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, this is probably my favorite prospect to talk about in the entire draft, just because of obviously the proximity to USC that we have. And then it's just a joy to watch the dude play, man. So aside from maybe Devontae Smith, I would say best route runner in this draft. He's got what people in the football world call teach tape, right? And that's when you're going to sit down, you got a 12-year-old kid, you're starting to teach him the mechanics of the position. You say, we're going to sit down and watch some Amon-Ra St. Brown film today. The beautiful thing about this, when you're so technically sound as a wide receiver in your route running ability, it works all the time. It doesn't matter who's lining up against you. It doesn't matter what strategy, the opposing team is going to implement for a given week. If you're a good route runner, you're going to be able to get open at every level of football. And that's what's so beautiful about Amon-Ra's game. It's going to translate. It's not a matter of if or how. It's just you as a coach now get to figure out, now I got a new weapon. How do I employ it? Because I get to do whatever I want, which is why I think the best fit for Amon-Ra St. Brown is a coach that knows how to employ weapons. And that's Kyle Shanahan. They have the 43rd pick in this upcoming draft. I think that's right about where Amon-Ra fits in terms of his draft projection, early second round. I think that would be, obviously they have Ayuk, obviously they have Deebo Samuel, but Kyle Shanahan is never one to, step away from a weapon if he feels like he can use it. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is a bona fide weapon. Get him on the 49ers, you're going to see a whole lot of fun stuff going on there, man. But let's go ahead and move on to J2
Yeah, we'll transition to the defensive side of the ball now. J2 did not play last year because of a COVID-19 opt-out. Obviously, his decision did what's in the best interest of him and his family. But in 2019, he showed a lot of promise on the line. He has a great shot move to get into the backfield, super disruptive in the running game, and has good size, 6'3", 305 pounds, that a lot of scouts are going to like. He's projected to be a late day 2, early day 3 guy, and I think he's going to fit very well on the Cleveland Browns. So they let Sheldon Richardson go this offseason for cap concerns. You have Malik Jackson there, but he's only there on a 1-year contract. He has some injury concerns. If you can bring a guy like Tufele into the fold and maybe let him sit behind Jackson for a year or maybe 2 if you want to extend him, but obviously Jackson's not going to be your long-term answer there because you have a Baker Mayfield extension looming, you have a Chubb extension looming, right? So take some time, sit back there, really learn the NFL style of game in a way that he wasn't really able to last year because he wasn't playing, standing behind a savvy vet in Jackson. And you also have Myles Garrett working from the outside, so maybe not so much pressure on him to develop a pass rush, so much as it is to do what he does well, disrupt the running game, get into the backfield, finish tackles. He's so good at that. With Tufele, I think he's a really good fit in Cleveland.
I like that. I like that a lot. Moving on to another USC defensive tackle, and this is a guy that perhaps benefited from the fact that J2 wasn't there last year because he got his chance to shine a little bit, and that's Marlon Tui Pelotu. He's primarily a 3-technique player, meaning that if for those of you who don't know, a 3-technique places you in between, the tackle and the guard, right in the B gap. And your job is to dominate that B gap and make sure nothing comes through there. And he did a really good job of that this past year with the Trojans. His tape is surprisingly slippery. For a guy of his size, you wouldn't expect him to be able to slip through that B gap and dominate it the way that he does, but he's actually a pretty good job of getting skinny and getting in between offensive linemen. But I do think, even though he did primarily play 3 technique, he can project to a 1 or 0 technique and line up right on that nose position because he has such great leverage and he has such great hands, and he's really good at sitting down and controlling the man in front of him and then shedding that block if he needs to go make a tackle. So I think he has a level of versatility that a lot of teams are going to like. I would like to see him in Atlanta because there are certain prospects that you say, like you mentioned it with J2 Fele, it might be a better fit for him to sit back and watch a little bit and kind of cultivate his game that way. Sometimes you want to see a prospect kind of get in there and learn, by being thrown into the fire. I think Marlon's one of those dudes, and that's why I think he would fit very well in Atlanta because their defensive line is not good at all. And they can probably find minutes for him, find playing time for him immediately. So I think if he goes to Atlanta, he really gets to get thrown into the fire, get some playing time early. That's going to help him a lot in his journey. So Marlon, fantastic player. I think he fits well in Atlanta.
We'll move to the back end now of the defense, and I'm going to talk about Talanoa Hofanga a little bit. Played safety last year for the Trojans, and these are his stats from last year. Mind you, we're talking about 6 games, 62 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions. He was a playmaker, and when you go back and watch him on tape, the thing that screams out to you is that he flies around the football field. He's around the ball all the time, and that's why you see all those big-time turnover stats, because when you're in the right place at the right time, good things are going to happen to you, right? But as I look for an NFL fit, I love the Los Angeles Chargers here. Now, the Chargers made an interesting move in the offseason. They chose not to go the offensive route in terms of head coach, but instead they bring in Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator from the Los Angeles Rams. He loves to play with 3 safeties. Right now, the Chargers have 3 safeties on the roster. They need more. But I think if you can go later in the draft and pick up a guy like Hofanga, he can do sort of different things for you than sort of other players on the roster can. You have a lot of good drop back and coverage guys. And he can come in immediately and contribute on special teams because he's so good getting to the football. So that's a guy who, if you're taking maybe in the 5th, 6th round, is going to make big time plays for you in the 3rd phase of the game, which obviously is a place you never want to be weak, especially when you consider a team like the Chargers that lose on so many heartbreaking fashions. Every yard does matter for them. And that's why I think Los Angeles is a good fit.
I like that a lot. Just the thought of Derwin James and Talanoa Hofanga on the same football field at the same time. That's ridiculous. But let's go ahead and move on to another USC defensive back, Eliza Griffin, as I like to call him, my distant cousin somewhere. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. I don't know if we're family or not for real. But I will say one thing that me and Elijah have in common is that we both know a little something about the DB position. I'm going to just say it, man. I don't know why there's not more buzz for Eliza Griffin as a defensive back, man. You watch his tape, he's a pro. He's a flat out pro. Eliza Griffin's feet, immaculate. In terms of flipping his hips and mirroring a wide receiver, he does that again immaculately. The dude's hips are so fluid. Placement in terms of where his hands go, I think could use a little bit of work, but he's aggressive, so those things can be taught. And that aggressiveness, that's probably, I would say, the defining trait of Eliza Griffin's game. You line up opposite of that dude, you are in for a dogfight each and every snap. And admittedly, it gets in his own way sometimes. Sometimes he gets a little hung up on the guy in front of him and not shedding that block and going and making a play. Sometimes he gets into the mindset of, going for that interception when he should be playing it a little bit safer. But those things can be coached out of you. What can't be coached into you is that level of confidence that you have in yourself. And you have to have that. You have to have that confidence about you. And I think that's why he's going to be a very good NFL defensive back, because he's so aggressive, because he's such a good tackler. I think he would fit very well into that nickel spot. But in terms of a fit, keep this dude in Los Angeles. Obviously, he loves it here. Obviously, he's Showtime. Put him on the Rams, man, because that puts him in a position where he's able to compete alongside a guy like Jalen Ramsey. I think those two dudes would click for obvious reasons, right? But then you also get to compete against guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, a USC alum, on a daily basis, and that gives him the opportunity not to have to plug in and play immediately, but kind of groom his game to get ready when he's ready to roll.
All right, we will finish up with Tyler Vaughn, the second Trojans wide receiver, who's hoping to hear his name called next weekend. He's another guy expected to be a late round selection, but the word that comes to mind when you think of Vaughn's is dependable. So he played 4 years at USC. Here are his yards per catch averages in each of those 4 seasons. 14.2, 11.6, and then 12.3 twice. There's been criticism with regards to his explosiveness. He's not the guy who's going to burst out of the box and burn a guy down the field 60 minutes a game. But you know what? He is going to be extraordinarily reliable for a quarterback. He knows how to operate in the clutch. He knows how to navigate a football field extraordinarily well. And what kind of team loves wide receivers like that? The New England Patriots. I mean, you can think of a ton of guys on that team historically who maybe aren't the most athletic, maybe not the most explosive, but Belichick and McDaniels know how to get them open in key situations. This is a team that ranked 25th in the league in passing offense last year. They're going to stick with Cam Newton. Maybe they'll draft a quarterback as well. Either way, you're going to need a reliable guy down the stretch. I mean, maybe he's certainly not a year one starter, but maybe he can come in a couple plays a game and pick up that extra 6 yards for you in the way the Patriots always seem to get with a guy like Edelman who just retired. Thursday, April 29th is the day we all need to keep in mind. That is day one, round one of the NFL draft. The draft will continue through Saturday, May 1st. Hopefully, we're going to hear a lot of Trojans get their name called and look to take what they did in Los Angeles and translate it over to NFL teams. But for now, I'm Will Camardella. He's Reagan Griffin. Thanks for watching.